plan ahead. That way we don't do anything right now. Earl, explain it to me.
And welcome back, everybody, to Suns and Shadows Cast. We're a podcast that delves into the lost, forgotten, and canceled TV series. It's time to remember, relive, and revisit. Let's keep that memory alive and never let them be forgotten. My name is Jeff.
And I am the dark part of your soul, Kevin Smith.
Haha, sweet. I knew the dark part was around there somewhere.
Yeah, that's why you need me. I'm always here.
Absolutely. And Will is not joining us this time. He has been sent on a special reconnaissance mission to Perfection, Nevada. We hope to see him on the next episode and see what he brings back with him. And all right, everybody, we are actually doing something a little bit different this time, as evidenced by my little hint with Will. We are having a fun little episode here. We're doing something called a primer episode. Well, we are going to be calling these the survival guides. These are going to be episodes where we talk about the movie franchises that came before the television series that resulted from it. So Bart Gummer would probably be proud of us, but are we prepared for the franchise of Tremors? The better question might be, are you ready for Tremors? So let's go ahead and let's get into this. All right, Kevin, what did you remember about Tremors the first time you saw it, where you saw it, how you saw it?
Okay, so this time I remember all of that.
Sweet.
So I was 10 years old, I think. 10 when that came out.
Okay.
I saw it with my best friend Emiliano in the Granada Theater in Hollister, California, which was a small one-screen independent theater that still exists, but I believe it's a playhouse now. It's no longer a movie theater.
Okay.
But anyway, we went to go see it, just randomly went to go see a monster movie that we'd seen the previews for. And my jaw was gaped open throughout the most of this flick because I was so intrigued by what I was seeing with. Okay, so another way to describe this is I come from Central California. Hollister is in Central California, right on the San Andreas fault line. So earthquakes was we don't have subways and shit we're driving by. We've got earthquakes so often you don't feel it.
Right.
So Tremors was just really neat. So the idea of minor earthquakes that turned out to be monsters was just really fucking cool for me.
No kidding. I lived in San Diego and we were near a fault line a little bit. So that I know exactly what you're talking about. You'd feel a little tremor here and there, but then the quakes with it and you'd be like, okay, that's the real one. So I do agree with you on that sort of vibe. As far as me, I honestly don't think I saw this on the theater. I'm pretty sure I saw this on USA channel, but I'm not entirely positive. Could have been a video rental on VHS, but I don't really remember. It's all kind of fuzzy about when I really saw this the first time, but I'm going with the USA channel because they played this all the time because it's a Universal Studios movie and that's basically their network.
Oh, did they own that at the time? Or do they still?
Or maybe not. Maybe I'm completely remembering that wrong and I'm really showing my age.
No, because Turner owned the other ones. USA, I don't believe he owned.
Yeah, no, USA was, that ended up being NBC Universal nowadays. So that's NBC now. But back then, I thought that was the Universal Studios channel.
Probably. It sounds about right. I remember it was on there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it because the first time I actually saw Tremors on home video, there was a lot more swearing. And I don't know, I thought it was ooh, what am I watching now? This is really cool. Shows my age again, but you go from the TV edited versions to the not so edited version, and it's hilarious as hell and even more enjoyable, especially now as an adult.
Yeah, I would say that, which is funny because there's not a whole lot of swearing in Tremors to begin with. They had to cut a lot of it out for the rating.
Absolutely.
Which is where you got some of the more memorable quotes from the movie, but still it's a world of difference between what they would show on the cable networks versus what you would actually see in the movie. The stuff that they cut was always really amusing. I remember back in the early 90s watching Blazing Saddles. The fart scene was cut out completely, where they're all sitting around eating beans and stuff, but not a single N-bomb was cut out. They cut out the fart scene.
Oh my gosh.
Like that was the most fucking offensive thing that you could think to remove.
Oh my god. Yeah, they edit the weirdest things. Sometimes I wonder if it'd be fun just to see like the TV version included on like the Blu-rays or whatever they come out with these days. They do it on some things, but they don't do it on a majority of it. I think it'd be hilarious to see Tremors, the edited version, just one more time, but probably still airs plenty enough times.
I would give it a go. Tremors is, and we'll talk about, I'll repeat this several times. Tremors is one of those movies that I could sit and watch whenever it comes on.
Yeah, right. Whether you're in the middle of it, towards the end of it, oh, hey, it's Tremors.
Exactly. And you're never really being like, well, I guess I could watch this. You're like, oh, hey, okay, sure. There's never no negativity to watching Tremors. And that's one of the things I do love so much about not just the first movie, but now the entire quadrilogy. I'm just going to refer to it as a quadrilogy.
Right.
I just fell in love with it. It's fun. There's no wrong reason to watch it now.
Absolutely not. Yeah, like we're mostly going to be talking about the core 4 movies here. We're not going to get into 5, 6, or 7 because they take place after the eventual TV show and with another production studio, not Stampede Entertainment. So that's why we're focusing on the quadrilogy here. And that's not a vague Alien reference because I don't even like Alien 4. So,
but Ron Perlman.
Okay, that's the only good part about Resurrection there. But Tremors, how I love thee, and Alien, I love you too. And if you ever get a TV show, you might get a chance to be on this show because you're probably going to get canceled after one season too.
Well, let's keep the Alien quadrilogy in mind. Let's bring up a few franchises, trilogies, quadrilogies in the horror industry.
Yep.
We'll start with Alien, Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, Prophecy, not Nightmare on Elm Street. We already said that. Friday the 13th. Most of your major franchises, let's keep those in mind because we are going to compare Tremors to them as a whole.
Yeah.
Later on. And what I'm going to say is probably either going to piss people off or surprise them greatly.
That's my Kevin. That's my Kevin. That's our Kevin Smith.
I can't help it. I'm a natural dissenter.
Absolutely. Now, did you have any other impressions of Tremors when you first saw this? Did it like really make you want to I don't know, cosplay, get any items, or just watch the damn movie whenever it was on?
No, gosh, I was so bashful as a kid. I was never into cosplay, not even on Halloween. Only now am I really enjoying wearing a mask only because I have to. But Tremors, I grew up really liking monster movies. I've talked about that several times. I started watching the old Universals at 3 years old. My father insisted. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time by the time I was 7, and then Friday the 13th shortly thereafter. So I'd been watching horror films for some time, or at least 2-3 years, nasty ones before Tremors came out. So Tremors was rather tame compared to the rest of the things that I'd been seeing. But I think at the very least, I will say my first viewing, I had more fun watching Tremors than I realized.
Right.
I think only looking back on it now as an adult, do I appreciate Tremors for what it is. Tremors, I think, once I got to a certain age, maybe around 12 or 13, became cheesy and passé to me. And I don't know why. I don't know if I had a stupid chip on my shoulder that it wasn't rated R, or it wasn't gory enough, so it wasn't true horror. That was completely wrong. And I apologize to everyone that I've dumped on the Tremors franchise for in life, saying, why do you like that? Why do you like that? It's direct to VHS. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. Before I even talk about how much I like it, I'm going to apologize. They hold up. The one thing, if you watch Tremors 1 now as an adult in this day and age, it still holds up. You wouldn't be able to really tell if Perfection was being filmed in 2022 or if Perfection was being filmed in 1989, because the town didn't really evolve that much. Just it's one of those towns that's how it is and that's how it stays. So I liked that part, but I had that chip on my shoulder. I wasn't willing to like it very much. and I never saw the sequels. I didn't give the sequels the time of day. At first, it was because of that stupid chip on my shoulder, that stupid thought that they weren't horror enough. And then out of the snobbiness that it's direct to VHS, I don't like things that don't go to the theaters, or things that don't go to the theaters don't go to theaters for a reason. That is also not true. Wonderful films such as Boondock Saints have fucking proved that over once or twice.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I will never, ever say an unkind word about an independent film ever again, or a film that doesn't go to the theater, unless it's made by the Asylum, who can all kiss my ass. Which,
And
by
mine.
the way, which is also why we don't cover Tremors 5, 6, and 7. Now, it's not made by the Asylum, but it might as well be. So, no, thank you. That's the sort of thing some of my relatives would watch, that watch really bad TV. And that I will still dump on them for. But as far as the original quadrilogy, no, I apologize. It is fantastic. I didn't think I was going to enjoy getting into this episode nearly as much as you said I was going to. And I did. I had a lot of fun the entire time.
Yeah, I had an absolute feeling like when you had said, I've never watched 3 or 4, and I didn't know whether you had watched part 2 or not, but like for me, like I was such a Tremors fan. I had the VHS tape for years, then I knew of the second one coming out, and I saw that on like Cinemax or HBO with my dad because it had just come out. It was kind of brand new. And then I remember recording that. Then I bought the VHS tape, wore that out. And then it was a while until we got like part 3 and 4 on DVD. But at that point, I was following like, hey, 3 and 4 are coming. 3 came out, then the show came out, then 4 shortly thereafter, even though it was shot at the same time as this show. So I don't know. For me, I didn't really have like the chip on my shoulder. It's just I never really understood like why Val wasn't in like the second one. Like, but then you get into Kevin Bacon, and was he embarrassed with Tremors, or was it more like he's trying to not get typecast in situations? Like the only movie I know that he we can get into this now or we can get into it later, but the only movie that he ever seemed to be truly a little taken back by is the Friday the 13th one, because fans would always bring up a picture to sign of him after being stabbed through the throat by the killer in part 1. So he was like, why do you want me to sign this gory death picture? It just kind of, I don't know. I understand the reasoning. Like, that's very awkward. You want a picture of me dead and you want me to sign it? I would feel a little weird too, but I don't know. But as far as like my impressions, like, yeah, I never had the chip on my shoulder, but I always got a kick out of these. The show, however, and we'll get into this on the next episode, but I wasn't easily sold on the show. So that was a bit of a sell for me, but we'll get into those reasons later. We got the movies we're talking about, and Perfection's a very charming town. Like Melvin, the idiot kid who's always like crying wolf, you got going
turd.
running through the little turd, and boy does that carry through all the sequels galore. Like he's not in the second one, but in the third one he's in it. So like each of the movies does bring back characters that link to the first Tremors. So there's something to be said about Tremors and the universe it occupies within itself, and that it continues to have good characters, fun stories, and just a fun world to be a part of.
And they're very fluid stories.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted you to remember all of the different horror franchise names for, because comparing them to Tremors, they suck when it comes to continuity.
A lot of them do.
Every single one of those fucking franchises suck, and you have to make shit up in your fucking mind so it flows continuously. You know, like Halloween, for example, we've talked about it a few times.
Yes, we have.
The fucking doctor at the very beginning that says, well, I don't suppose somebody taught him how to drive. That doctor, if you think about it, taught him how to drive, and then what turns out to be the Man in Black in part 4 and 5.
And 6.
But you have to fucking make that shit. Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
6. You got to make that shit up in your fucking head in order to get that, or you
Right.
have to think about it for a long time. With the Tremors franchise, there's no thinking about that. There's a straight, no, not a straight line necessarily, but each movie is a chapter. It's almost each character's chapter. And when you start the beginning of each chapter, they tell you what happened to the character from the last.
Yeah.
And that they did that really well. None of it was done cheesy. No one got written off poorly. Everyone had a good reason for either being in the film again or not being in the film again, or their story made sense to the character. And you don't get that in most other horror franchises.
Right. Like with a lot of the horror franchises, you almost need a goddamn flow chart. Or like a family tree of like the different ways these connect to each other. Like the famous one is the Halloween one I've shared before on the Sons and Shadows Facebook page, where you got 1 and 2, then you got 1, 2, 4, and 5 and 6, then you got 1, 2, H2O, then you got 1, 2, and Halloween. No, yeah, you get my point. Resurrections, then it goes to Rob Zombies, then it goes to the newer ones, and they all interject and go linky. The only one that doesn't connect to any of them is Halloween 3, for fuck's sake. And then you got Friday the 13th. The only other horror franchise that keeps a fluidity and consistency through it to any sort of degree, and I don't know how many fans there are out this, is Phantasm. All of them link together very smoothly. The part 2 is where everybody gets a little twitchy because they recast the role of Michael in the movie series with James LaGrosse. Then they came back to Anthony Michael Baldwin in 3 and 4 again, not related to the other Baldwin that's currently into the news. So a good Baldwin. But that's the only franchise out there other than this one that flows like that. However, with Tremors, they don't have the crux of falling on flashbacks. They don't get lazy with the writing. There's no flashbacks to, oh, there's this from part 1 that you need to remember, or like this lost deleted scene, or we have to fulfill this little plot hole because, hey, there's this something from part 1. No, it comes up casually and naturally and organically through the movies. In part 2, they talk about, I've done this before and I did not like it. And, they're evolving, they're getting smarter, they're doing this, they're doing that. This is not how they were before. And you constantly are keeping on edge with what's going on because you don't have the crux of a flashback. You don't have to continuously rely on the previous one. You're building from the previous one. So the writing is a hard strength for me on these because of that.
Yes. Another way to say that is Tremors is better than the Matrix Resurrections.
Indeed.
No, it's true. The Tremors universe is kind of like reading an X-Men comic, and like an old-fashioned X-Men comic before they got stupid. Like everything built off the next thing, and the story would go, and you would get not flashbacks, but references to what had come before.
Yep.
And that's what's so much better about Tremors, I think, is everything is referenced. Nothing is left out. I don't think there's a single character that gets forgotten.
No, I don't think so.
Even if they're dead, the people that died in the first movie are referenced numerous times throughout the next 2.
Right. Especially like in part 3 when they go back to perfection. Well, obviously Chang's is now with his niece. So you have the natural progression there. Like, can't go really wrong with that. Mindy's back. You got the tour guides that are now trying to capitalize on the graboids. I mean, I think that presents a nice little twist on the story too. So like they all bring something different.
That added some realism, actually. The tourist attraction.
I love all the gimmicks in the store were fantastic.
Yes. Now, question though, and not to jump ahead, but in part 3, I think it was part 3, where Walter's niece had all the graboid things on the counter.
Yeah.
Were those dildos? They looked like dildos.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that. I am not sure.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for everyone listening at home. We'll try to find a fucking screenshot of the graboid dildo for you. Otherwise, I'm just a sicko and have issues.
Yeah. Welcome to our podcast. Yeah, I know. I'd have to go back and take a look at that. I don't remember that at all. And I just watched that again too. I watched that a couple times for this show.
Well, They had more merchandise than you could shake a stick at, and all of it looked like it was made in China, which was really fun because that's what tourist merch is, or cheap gimmicky merch is. And it was almost like driving through like one of those historical towns where like that's their gimmick, so they've got fucking images of that gimmick on everything. And that's kind of what the graboids become in perfection. And I really liked that because that's the way things really are in real life. So I mean, to say, oh, there's a monster tourist attraction out in the middle of nowhere in Arizona is stupid. No, that's something that you'd probably actually see. Lord knows you see fucking alien side tours or roadside attractions all over New Mexico and shit.
Oh yeah, like Nevada for like Area 51. I mean, part 3, he's wearing an or no, it's the show. He's wearing an Area 51 hat.
Oh, Bert is?
No, Tyler in the TV show. I mean, we'll get to that too, but like he's wearing an Area 51 hat. So clearly he came from like the Las Vegas area. So, you know, there's all that too. Like, and the running gag through the movies is, oh, these guys are from outer space. No, they're not. They're Precambrian life forms. And so there's continually the jokes about like, hey, they were supposed to be from outer space. They're supposed to be from outer space. Damn it. They're not from outer space.
The other running joke I liked came from someone that I didn't think I was going to like at all in the series, and that was Grady, yes. where he says, "Oh, I'm not the old guy. I'm somebody new."
I'm not the other guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Very meta joke. I really liked that. Like it was kind of a wink and nod without having to do it.
Right. That's almost too bad that Kevin couldn't come back. I guess they're in the initial screenplays. They did have that written or scripts that they had Kevin coming back. They even had like a little inside joke that once they figured out these guys are Precambrian life forms, that they're going to slip the bet of a 50 between each other and be like, yep, you were right.
Well, with him not coming back, I think that is probably the biggest reason why I did not see part 2.
Okay.
And again, that was before understanding that sequels didn't really happen that often in films where the same characters came back. So the fact that Fred Ward came back in general was amazing at that time. But looking back on it, am I sad Kevin Bacon didn't show up for any of the others? Yes, of course I am. He was fantastic. I loved Val. I liked Kevin Bacon because, again, I recognized him from Friday the 13th already.
Right.
And Val was fucking cool in the movie. Like he had all the really cool lines for the most part. So when he didn't show up, I was kind of like, oh, it's gonna suck. And then when you first see Grady show up to meet Earl, the way that they had him dressed was so early 90s.
Right.
That I wanted to turn it off so bad.
I remember the message you sent me through Messenger. You're like, oh my God, what are you doing to me, Jeff?
But okay, so then next scene, he's got a costume change and then he's dressed like somebody that's not completely like devoid of intelligence.
Right. Like, at least he got out of Vegas mode is how I looked at that, because he looked like he was a taxi driver from Vegas.
Yes. Oh my God. Or Louisiana or something strange.
Who thought he was way too hip.
Yeah. The gloves and the hat. I was like, no.
That was about 4 years later than it was in fashion for, because I did the fingerless gloves in junior high for like a week, and that was enough.
I had them for paintball. That was it.
There you go.
I had tactical gloves because my dad was a police officer and in the military. So I always cheated at paintball by having tactical gloves and Kevlar vest under my greens or my camo, so nobody knew that I wasn't actually getting hurt when I got shot.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, until my best friend figured it out and shot me in the ass, but whatever.
Ooh, that sounds like a quote for another show.
He got me in the ass end.
I fell in the ass.
But yeah, let's marvel at the first one really quick. Like there are some moments that because we could go on about the continuity forever as the continuity goes, but just to marvel at the first one really quick, the graboids themselves were really original. And and this is what made them stand out, and I still think makes them stand out, is they're original monsters. And you don't always see that. when you see monster movies today, it's always vampire, zombie, werewolf, vampire, zombie, werewolf,
or some slight alteration on that.
yeah. So these were totally new creatures. They were practical effects. There was no CG in the first one.
Correct.
And they were scary. They were scary enough because you didn't see them. They had that Bruce factor to them from Jaws.
Right.
And I don't think that was something that Steve intended at first. I think from what I understood, the studio kind of forced the GoPro vision
I think so.
to add more of a creeping monster feel for it. And I'm glad that they did. I usually don't go with studio forcing anything on a film whatsoever. But in this case, I think it worked out because Tremors, to me, might be the last great monster movie series. Like when you say what makes a monster movie great, my personal feeling after thinking about it for a good long time, the merit of a monster movie's worth is the fun that you have watching it.
Right.
It's not
I
how
agree.
gory it is. It's not how scary it is. It's how much fun you have watching it. Now, if you get scared and that makes it fun for you, yes, sure. But it's not the doom gloom factor. It's more the fun of being jittered, seeing something funny happen, or someone getting their comeuppance or something like that. Monster movies have always been made to be fun and scare you in a fun way. And Tremors does that where a lot of other films stop doing it. And I think that's where my newfound appreciation for it is as the original film.
I agree with that. I mean, it also helped forward along the concept of the horror comedic movie, where there's comedy in it along with the horror, so you could find a balance. There is a good balance of a little bit of scary, a little bit of funny, a little bit of action, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It was very well balanced. Movies up to that point were either one way too far or the other, and it would be a bit jarring, like, what the hell am I watching? This isn't, like, it would pull you the one way you don't want to be after, like, the trailers would tell you it's a different sort of a movie. No, Tremors, their trailers basically told you this is going to be a scary but fun movie that harkened back to like the 50s with the good old monster movies.
Yeah, it was very akin to something like Them, wasn't it?
Yes, that's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Yeah, very well said. I did not look at it that way. It's it's a great creature feature.
Hell yeah, it is. That's how I looked at it. And well, you say like do you want to be, depends on like what kind of horror monster movies you like. And I think like Cloverfield versus say like, I don't know, this, and I would always choose something like this over like Cloverfield by a mile.
Cloverfield was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
It had moments, but that's about all I'll give that movie.
Yeah, when fucking the dude from Deadpool finally gets fucking eaten and killed.
Yep, exactly.
Oh my god, that annoying little son of a bitch. We're not going to stray too far away from it, but I wanted him to die from the very moment he says, everyone's going to want to see how it all went down. Like at that point, I already wanted my $10 back. I didn't care how it fucking went down. I wanted some Dramamine, a nap, and to go home. So but anyway, back to better monster movies. You're right. This holds out better. This holds out better. They didn't rely on rehashed monsters like Cloverfield did. If you look carefully, the little monsters, the crabs that fall off the big monster's crotch in Cloverfield, those are the bugs from Starship Troopers, just sized down and recolored.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And I was like, son of a bitch, they thought we wouldn't fucking notice.
Right.
Fuck Cloverfield. And I hate J.J. Abrams. Anyway, so again, practical effects, original monsters. Tremors had that leg up. It had a leg up on everything because there at the time everything was slasher. Like Freddy made everything have to be slasher. So I mean that same year you had Robert Englund coming out with Friday the 13th Part 4 and Phantom of the Opera came out that year also, didn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, I want to say Phantom of the Opera did at least.
Yeah.
So I mean that was some of the and Warlock also came out around the same time, 88, 89.
Warlock.
So I mean that was Tremors' competition at the time.
Right.
And looking back on all of those films, again, like I said before, Tremors is the movie that really stands out and holds up against time. Like,
Yeah, it does.
it's not dated. Warlock is very dated. It's very 80s. It's still fun and cool, but it's very dated. Your Nightmare on Elm Street movies are dated. They'll always be fun, but they're dated. Tremors is timeless. Tremors was timeless, and it gave us a bunch of quotes that,
Yeah,
that stuck with people like me for the rest of their fucking lives, where I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I go back and I watch Tremors and I'm like, is that where I got pardon my French from? Or I found the ass end, you know,
right.
Legs that go all the way up. Those phrases stuck in my head for the rest of my life. And I didn't realize they all came from Tremors. That was all really good writing and shit. The other competition movies at the time didn't have it so much. And I think that's also because Tremors is based in a lot of realism. The only unrealistic thing about it is the graboids themselves. Everything else is very realistic. All of Bert's guns, everyone's reactions, like Earl and Val finding the bodies of the road construction guys.
That was great.
Pretty fucking accurate.
Yeah.
You know? And Fred Ward has the same kind of reaction when you start seeing the Shriekers in part 2. Where he's like, he just flat out says, I don't know shit. Like he doesn't know what's going on, and he's scared as fuck and wants to go home at this point.
Right. He was trying to rest on his laurels of what he knew of the graboids. And once it changed and evolved, he's all like, I don't know what the hell. That's it. I'm out of here. I'm gone. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, but you know, at least at that point, he brings in the real hero of the franchise, and that's Bert.
Oh yeah.
God bless Bert Gummer.
Well, he already had Bert down by that point when the Shriekers started showing up. He called him because they were like, oh shit, there's way too many graboids in this area for us to deal with, and they're all swarming the truck he had with Grady, and they're like, oh shit, we're gonna need help. And then he calls in the big gun.
And that was what was it? That was the second time that they talked about one of the characters that was no longer in the series, and that was Heather, Bert's wife.
Right. Yep.
I don't know why Reba wasn't in it. She was supposed to be. I don't know if it was a scheduling thing or not. But
I was gonna say, like, I think that had to do with she was still on tour doing things like that. But I also seem to recall like her acting career was starting to take off and she was getting cast in another TV show. So it sounded like maybe her schedule was going to get really like bunched up, but it also sounds like they never asked her because there was I don't know if it was one of our supporters of the podcast who pointed out that or where I heard this from, but somebody did say like they just never asked her. She was interested in coming back, but they just never asked her. Like, and Universal knew it and they were just like, nope, that's okay.
Wow. God, I hate Universal. I fucking do.
A lot of these studios have their issues, man. I'm telling you.
Universal sucks balls. They have for years. But anyway, we all know I hate them.
Yep.
Anything that they've done is from like 1932 on. It's not that great. Yeah, they lost me after Dracula. They suck. But they should have left their paws out of the Tremors movies. They really should have. They should have let Heather come back. Yeah. Although, again, they wrote her off fairly well. You know, Bert couldn't handle the fall of communism, so Heather left to go live with her sister and never came back.
Well, at least they came up with like clever ideas on how to like write them out of the show without absolutely saying, oh, well, they're dead and they can't come back ever again.
Right.
So at least like, hey, maybe down the road, Bert, you know, hypothetically, and I'm not giving any ideas to anybody, this is just stupid fan theory off the top of my head right now, is like, you could always have it in like part 5 or part 6 where he's like carrying the, you know, the movie and, you know, he's got to talk to her again and there's still a chemistry and hey, maybe they'll get back together. Or you find out she's completely doing something else. I don't know. But it left the door open that you could always get back into that and re-engage that. And once we get to part 4, I got a comment about the Gummers and the women they hook up with.
Ah, they have a type.
Yes, they do. Oh, I could just go ahead and I'll say it. They all have a thing for strong-willed redheads. They like their gingers.
That they do. The women that you do not fuck with for any reason whatsoever.
Nope. So all the Gummer lineage just continues to get into, hey, we like our redheads and we like them very strong and very aggressive.
Exactly. No, I still think it would be pretty funny if they did bring Heather back and it turns out she became a liberal after so many years away from Bert.
Hey.
I think probably just 12 people just went, fuck you, and turned off the podcast.
or they're screaming, don't give him any more ideas.
Right? Somewhere at Universal, they're like, hey, I like that. Get that Reba lady on the phone.
Yeah, no, Reba, please don't do it.
Yeah, I love Reba too much to have her do a bad movie.
All right.
And I'm not even a country fan, and I love Reba. She's just cool.
She's very good. Her television career really took off. Like, this was like her first movie, and I thought she did very well.
Oh God, she was natural, wasn't she?
Yeah, though I think her first scene was literally when she was looking at the graboid off the back of the truck the first time, and she's got the disgusted look on her face and given the, that's disgusting. Oh, what's that smell?
The smell. Now, okay, let's talk about the disgusting graboid smell and what causes it. Does anyone know what they have used as graboid guts over the years? It looks like your liver got beaten with a fucking pumpkin, mashed together and like blown up.
Yeah, that's a good question.
And remind me to write that down so we could ask Steve next time we talk to him.
Absolutely.
What are graboid guts blown up made of? Or the blown up graboid guts made of?
And what's the smell supposed to reflect? Like natural gas or something way more wicked? Like, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I mean, if they become ass blasters, then
not good.
Oh my God, I haven't said, that's the first time I've said ass blaster on the show.
That's now twice.
Okay, good. Because we were going to have a contest to see how many times I could say ass blaster in one show. That's 3. Okay, so we might as well move along then. So in order to get to the ass blasters 4, we got to talk about the shriekers. So the graboids, they're the oldest living known life form on Earth, which might make them the smartest since they tend to outsmart us here and there, or one of the smartest since they outsmart us here and there. But they also evolve. Just like the movies, the graboids evolve in each different film. Yes. So in the first movie, you see them as in their first phase, which is the graboid. And then they reproduce asexually or hermaphroditically, as they put it. But anyway, and that comes out to be a bipedaling, two-legged creature called a shrieker that sees an infrared. It can't feel you or hear you, but it can see your body heat.
Yes.
And that's what ends up really fucking up Earl and Bert in the second movie. And Bert's got that great line of not having that very pivotal need to know information.
If they had properly researched, I was denied critical need to know information.
Oh God, he was so great at that, falling out of that truck.
Oh my God. Like, and it just not to get us too far off topic again, but like the lines in the second one are on par with the first one. Like there's a whole lot of quotable lines right on through Tremors 2.
Yeah, there really are. I didn't write down the ones for 2 like I did for 1, because again, 1 are right. Lines that stuck with me throughout the rest of my life. And there's only a few movies that do that. Like, I want to say 95% of my daily vocabulary comes from like Ghostbusters, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman, and Tremors. Like, I had no idea like those movies like most of my daily dialogue comes from that or like an MST riff.
The English language knows no bounds.
Nope. Yeah, if it's not a riff I'm quoting, it's usually a movie.
Hey, that sounds like me.
I don't know how to speak in proper language anymore.
I don't know. I got wrestling lingo, I got movie lingo, I got video game lingo, and whatever I call bad English.
Bad English. That's my usual day. F this, F that, F this.
Yep, that would be a different podcast you'd be listening to right now if it was one of those days.
Or if we'd be talking about a different show like The Office again. But anyway.
No, we've moved on from that. We're on Tremors. We're having a good time. We're going through the sequels here, so hey,
we're talking
it's all
about
good.
monsters killing and eating people. It's a good thing.
And trying to survive with your core group of favorite characters.
It's true. And the core characters stay the whole time. When you get to part 3, everyone but Val is in perfection. Well, Val and Walter.
Right.
And Nestor. So three people. Val, of course, we all know is off with Rhonda, living happily ever after.
Yep.
Walter is now Graboid Poop. His niece is now running his shop.
Yes.
Heather is still off with her sister. Nancy still lives there, as well does Mindy.
Yep.
And it was and Miguel was still there.
Right.
And it was so nice to see all his familiar faces. It was a really neat thing. Like, I would have not thought a third movie the second sequel was going to be as enjoyable or make me smile as much as it did seeing the original characters come back. That was a lot of fun. That was a treat.
Yeah, when I saw Miguel come back, I'm like, holy crud, I completely forgot he was in this movie. And I watched this movie twice for this show. And the first time I'm like, holy crap, Miguel. Wow. For some reason, I thought he died in the first one, yet I've seen the first one a million times. Not literally, but like so much that I don't know. I just forgot he was still kicking. So
He's still kicking? Well, at least
not for long.
45 minutes,
but,
Yeah,
he made it through at least halfway of the movie, but seeing him interact and actually like doing something more than just being a talking head, that was great. Shooting a gun, getting actually attacked, like he was actually involved in the movie instead of just being a character.
Oh, absolutely. And he had some balls in that fucking movie too.
Yeah, he did.
So and by the time we get back to perfection, what was it, 11 years? Yes, 11 years later, Bert has been gone. Bert has paid for seismograph technology everywhere, and everyone's just let it go to shit because they don't think that the Tremors are going to come back.
The batteries are dead, or yeah.
Yeah, I use it to, hang my plant or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
And when he comes back and finds out that basically the town's just pissed all this away, and he's just like completely beside himself. And then you get what you think is the FBI pulling up into perfection.
Right.
And that gets Bert's attention real fast. But it's BLM. It's this guy coming out like he's this big bad motherfucker, and he just works for the Bureau of Land Management.
Yep.
Basically, he's Will Ferrell's character from fucking Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, where yes, because he's federal, he does have fucking authority, but he's just a fucking BLM guy, so he's not really shit.
Right.
Basically, a postal worker can tell a cop what to do, and the cop kind of has to do it because it's in the way of a federal car. But they're telling the citizens of perfection, you cannot hunt the remaining graboids. And so he's got this "I told you so" moment. But Miguel pops up out of nowhere and just fucking tells this guy that I could kill the wolves that are killing my cattle. And he's basically, fuck you, these guys are going to kill my cattle, I'll kill whatever the fuck I want. And you didn't really get that from him like you said, other than a talking head. He was out there running and doing stunts and shooting guns. And then eventually he saves everybody. Lost his head, but he saves everybody.
Right.
At least, was it his head or half of his body? I don't remember.
They didn't really show that.
No. Well, it was upsetting. One way or the other, it was upsetting because Miguel was a really likable character.
Right.
I could have gone with somebody else going, but I liked Miguel.
Yeah, Miguel was good. They got rid of like the other tour guide buddy. I forgot the one who was trying to hook up with Mindy. He's like, "You don't like me very much," throwing his knife into the ground.
Oh, I couldn't wait for him to die.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, he was like he had to go.
yeah. He like you saw that guy and you're just like, cannon fodder.
Yeah.
You're here for the body count, aren't you? Right this way. No, Ariana Richards, when he died and she popped up, that's when she really started to shine. Tremors
know,
3
right?
might be the best thing I've ever seen her in.
Yeah.
You know, yes, she was awesome in Jurassic Park. She was hysterical in Spaced Invaders, but she really shone as an actress in this movie. And it's a shame that she doesn't try to act more than she does anymore because she was great.
Yeah, I was a big fan. Like the movie is very surprising. Like you start watching, you're like, okay, there's no paved road in perfection. This clearly looks like the budget got slashed. Like, oh, but there's Bird. Oh, but there's Miguel's back from the first one. Oh, and that person's back from the first one. Oh, and you're starting to feel like, okay, I can work with this. I can work with this. And then as you're getting along, it's like, oh, hey, this is pretty fun. And by the end of the movie, you're like, that is definitely a worthy entry in this and a great follow-up to the second one. I love the return to perfection. That's you almost tend to save those kind of returning to the original scene or whatever for like the fifth or the sixth or the seventh movie in most of these stupid franchises where it's like, oh, we got to go back to the beginning so we can do something interesting. This one proves you can go back on the third one, do something completely fresh and not rely on the previous ones. You just use the previous ones. Again, it's the building and the consistency that they've been coming with, and the comedy's still there, the irony. What supreme being would condone such irony when Bert blows up his building, yet all he had to do was feed it his MREs, which in the second movie, he fed him the MREs and they replicated like freaking replicators from SG1 or the Borg or just like, no, I just created a new army. Oh, all I had to do was feed it and knock it the fuck out. Oh, Christ. There goes everything I own and all of my hard work, all of my money is gone.
Yeah, all of his savings and all of his ammo.
Everything. Like his stash of silver was shrapnel blown across 3 square miles. Like, oh, your nest egg is gone, buddy.
Yeah, because we find out Bert actually pays for everything almost in perfection to keep it safe.
Right.
He had the roads paved. He got new technology for everybody after they let their old pieces of equipment go to shit. He reinforced everyone's foundations and built basements for them, I believe. Like from what he says, he did a lot of work. And then you've got the BLM guy coming in telling them that they have to move after all that shit.
Right.
And so, I mean, that just complicated things that much more for him. And then, yeah, like you said, they're going off of how to fight shriekers when all the ass blasters 5 are in the are in his basement trying to eat the MREs. Shriekers multiply exponentially, like you said, like gremlins. Shriekers, they get into a food coma. They're like, they just ate ribs and want to go night-night. They just want to go to take a nap. And that's pretty much how the third movie ended. How they got the final ass blaster.
Right.
Was just by accidentally feeding it, and then Nancy and Mindy hog tie it.
And then they promptly try and sell it to Sigmund and Freud.
Yeah, which they do.
or I mean Siegfried and Roy, but in the show they actually name it Sigmund and Ray or something like that. But
yeah, it was alluded to very, very harshly.
Like they had to kind of retcon just a tick. But like, yeah, the ass blasters, I don't know. The part of the ass blasters I liked was the practical effects. They did absolutely great. The K&B guys, Greg Nicotero, they did a great job on the practical effects. The CGI it's a little hard to watch in the third one. I don't blame that on anybody. It's a direct to video. The budget's low. They did what they could. It still was decent enough that it didn't look like a show from like 1995 trying to do CGI, or even like Warlock Armageddon. Anybody who's seen that knows the baseball in that movie, the baseball scene is completely fucking ridiculous. And it takes you out of the damn movie for the rest of the movie. But I don't know, the CGI wasn't too bad, but it did it takes you out a little bit. But the practical effects in all of these movies have been top notch.
Well, see, that's where that chip on my shoulder comes back. 90s CG is the worst fucking thing on your eyes, like as an art form. Compared to practical effects, CG is an eyesore. It's better now, but it's still an eyesore. I will always prefer latex, Caro syrup for blood, puppetry, animatronics, whatever. I don't like most CG.
Right.
And that's just what there was in the 90s. There's, like you said, there's nobody's fault. They couldn't have 30 to 60 fucking shriekers running around independently with practical effects. That wasn't feasible.
That would have been cool, but
yeah. In order to display what the story called for, you kind of have to suspend disbelief, go with the CGI, and then just follow the story, because the story's still cool. It's still there.
right.
And there's still plenty enough practical effects. And by the time you get to part 3, the only real time that you see CG is when the ass blasters are flying.
And it's in daylight. It's not at night where you can kind of hide it a little bit either. So in the daylight stuff, that's where it really sticks out.
Yeah, it's almost like watching a reverse green screen.
Right.
So I mean, it's a little jarring on your eyes, but just give it a moment. Practical effects come right back. And again, the story is right there. And the ass blasters look just as cool as the Shriekoids did, or the Shriekers did. I really liked them. I liked the concept as far as having the two volatile chemicals that mix together that give them gas that lights a 10-foot flame that shoots them across the air.
That was great. I was like, boy, that's actually pretty clever.
That was great. I mean, the name alone, Ass Blaster, and to point out it sounds like it's something from a fucking porno, was so fantastic.
They actually make a joke out of that too. Like, that sounds kind of dirty.
Oh yeah, because she's like, "What about Ass Blaster?" And I think, was it Jake? Jake, yeah, I think it was Jake. He's like, "No, it sounds like a porno."
The universe does not provide on that one.
Oh no, it was fun. And then again, with the evolution of the movies and then the graboids, once you get to the fourth film, how do you evolve in a prequel? Now that was always one of the things that, again, was once the fourth one came out, I was like, no, there's no reason for me to see that. Bert in the Old West, here's the shark, let's get ready to jump. Again, Steve, I'm sorry, dude, I was totally wrong. Totally wrong. There is no shark jumping in this. Tremors 4 works just as well as either a part 4 or a part 0.5. You could watch it before Tremors, you could watch it after Tremors 3, and it makes just as much sense. It's just as enjoyable.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. There was no shark jumping. There was that natural evolution jump there between not just movies, but again with the creatures. This time, instead of seeing a graboid's natural progression, because it's a prequel, you see their infancy.
Yes.
So you get to see those eggs hatch and what they're like. They're like 2.5 foot, 3 foot long, like snapping turtles, basically.
Right.
That come jumping up out of the ground, flying at full speed and lop your fucking head off. They were awesome. That was so cool to see. And then knowing who some of those characters would eventually turn out to be was also very cool. Like Miguel's grandfather.
Right. Yeah, a lot of, like, you think when they do prequels like this, they get a little too cute. They try and retcon or change things to like the worst degree, and they get ridiculous sometimes. They get really pathetic. They get really pandering to the fans. This one didn't really do the pandering. They actually took something and did something unique with it. Like you said, the infancy of the graboids. Like, yeah, they were calling them Dirt Devils, but they're just the smaller version. And seeing this for the first time in a very long time, first thing that popped in my mind was, oh my God, this reminds me of the movie Screamers with Peter Weller, where the little shriekers come flying out of the ground with like the buzz saws, but you got like 2 or 3 of them in this one, and they're more of an organic creature. I'm just saying it's reminiscent. I'm not saying they ripped them off or anything. I didn't feel that at all, but I just, that sudden jump out of the ground to then take somebody out, and it's like 2 or 3 of them. I'm like, that's really cool. That's a really cool visual for this franchise, and to show something fresh and unique. Like, the small graboids are now attacking, and you got Black Hand Kelly by Billy Drago, who was awesome.
Oh
And he
God.
gave the Gummer lineage the most wonderful advice, and that's what they carry forward through. Like, if I had known we were getting into this with these sort of things, I would have packed this sort of gun. I would have packed that sort of gun. Like, you should always be prepared. Like, what are you doing? Like, one of my favorite lines was just like, always be prepared. And just seeing Gummer looking at him like, okay, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, it was fantastic. Billy Drago is one of the greatest villains of our time.
Absolutely.
I believe he was the bad guy in Delta Force 2, and was probably one of the nastiest villains in any action flick ever. He was a fucking Colombian drug lord. And I remember at one point, like, he starts like taking his workers, the female workers that were pregnant, took them, used them to smuggle drugs into the US, using their babies to stuff with cocaine. Like, he was a horrible, wretched fucking dude.
Yeah.
But so in this, seeing him as a good guy, still being crazy because it's Billy Drago and that's just how he acts. But seeing him be a good guy was really weird. I liked it, but it was really weird at first. And then him telling Hiram Gummer, because this was their big swerve for part 4. Hiram was not a gun nut. He's a fucking Nancy. He's a big old city bitch when it comes to guns.
Good old city slicker.
Yeah, like, he has no gumption whatsoever, no balls, nothing. They tell him, bring a gun. What kind? Whatever feels comfortable in your hand. He brings like a little 22 type Derringer that fits in your fucking sock.
A single shot, it looked like, too.
Yeah, and then Billy Drago is trying to show him, this is where you need to learn to be a man. This is where you need to learn to work with what you've got. And he doesn't, he takes the message, but he doesn't really learn that lesson until the end, which again was a really neat progression for Hiram. And it was a really neat trick for Michael Gross to play himself completely differently.
Like, he's pompous, he's spoiled, he's kind of an asshole, especially at the beginning where he's convincing the kid, oh, get me my my brandy from my bag and you can have this last piece of bread. And then he brings the bread back and he's like, those who can take advantage of you will, and you should. Or I forget the exact wording of that, but he's like, those who take advantage should. It's like, oh, you asshole. But then he slowly comes around and he starts to understand everybody in town. So you got a big character development right there. And it's like, at first you're like, oh God, this is kind of stupid. Hey, wait a minute, this is kind of interesting. And by the end, you're like, yeah, baby, Gummer rules.
And it answers so much about Gummer. I mean, it's like, he's kind of like, again, in any movie where you've got a sissy city boy, they just want to get back to the city. That's
Right.
always the character's MO. I want to get back to my normal life of luxury and whatever else. And Hiram did, but Hiram also, I think, more wanted that family back that he had in Rejection.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a neat progression to see before he left. That 5 minutes of that, the sad moment where he's not there and they're all missing him, you knew that was going to end very quickly. And then when he comes back, it's like, you love his character progression because he's got that, what's a good way to put it? Like, enthusiasm that they're going to win. Like, he's not freaked out. He's not scared anymore. He's not nervous whatsoever. Yeah, he's just got like this seething confidence of we're together, we're gonna win, this is our home and our mine, and we're gonna get it back.
Yes.
And they come up with this fun plan that fails, but it works out so well. How many did they have left at the end? Was it just the 2 or was there 3? I don't remember.
What?
How many graboids that when they came and attacked the town at the end, when he comes with all the ammo.
Oh God, I just watched this last night. I
want
want to say 2.
Yeah, something like that, because they got one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got one with the punt gun, blew it the fuck to hell after the second shot.
Yeah, after the second shot.
So how do you outdo the elephant gun? Okay, we'll get a fucking a musket that looks like a giant fucking cartoon piece from Who Framed Roger Rabbit out of the Acme warehouse.
At first, I'm like, I do not believe this. That thing does not exist.
No. And he has to put a fucking big old blasting cap on it first.
No.
And because at that point, I didn't really realize it was a musket until he fucking misfires and then has to fucking pour the whole fucking barrel of gunpowder down the barrel again.
That was fantastic. I love that detail.
Yes. So, I mean, they used the punt gun once and it blew up that first graboid, and that was fantastic. And then, of course, you can't do that a second time because then it takes away the specialness from the first one that you blew up.
Yeah.
So then they have to come up with this weird plan to fucking destroy the second one, and they basically go fishing with them.
Pretty much.
And that turned out to be damn funnier than the fucking punt gun.
Yeah, that was just great. The climax just was totally killer. It was like all out. It just reminded me a lot of the first one with the way it ended.
Yes, with the large explosion of guts.
Oh yeah, raining everywhere. That's just great. I actually absolutely love that, and I love the fact that they're like, we can never tell anybody about this because who would want to live here if they ever knew about this? And I'm like, okay, that actually makes sense for why nobody knows about this many years later. But it also makes you wonder, like, wait, if this is the legacy, are you sure you don't tell like your kid or your grandkid or at some point, or do they just think you're nuts from like this Dirt Dragon story from like 100 years ago?
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that if they did tell, is probably one of those old wives' tale type things where the kids don't even believe it and they stop telling the stories.
I walked 10 miles to school in the snow in shorts. And as a kid, you're like, oh, whatever, Grandpa, sure.
Whatever. I tell my kids when I was little, I used to have to get up to turn the fucking TV up or change the channel or turn up the volume. My kids are like, dude, just get the fucking remote and stop telling a story.
I do not miss those days because I was doing that as a kid too. Like, Jeff, turn the channel.
That's because kids were always the designated remote control.
Yep. Until you had to alter the antenna to a proper tuning position.
Yeah, and then you were lucky if you didn't need to be holding on to it in order for extra connectivity.
Or get the aluminum foil to make the arch or whatever. To get it yeah.
But just to finish up what you were saying on Tremors 4, after they go fishing with the last graboid and all is well, they, like you said, they make the decision not to tell anybody. First proceeds to the mine go and investing in each and every single citizen of perfection. Rejection is now called perfection. I can't remember her name. Heather 1.0, the redheaded woman that owns the hotel. She brings him or buys him a Gatling gun to help him learn how to aim.
Oh yeah.
Michael Gross's reaction to pushing that lever the first time and it's making him jump, that made me giggle. But then the 3 cranks after that, and he starts to go a little bit faster, that was the most natural human reaction I have ever seen in my entire fucking life. And my face lit up like a Christmas tree, just like his, as he's sitting there rotating the shit out of this fucking Gatling gun and just wasting everything. And he's sitting there going, just losing his shit.
Yeah. That was fantastic. Oh, and her name was Christine.
Christine.
Yeah.
So, and I know guns aren't the most popular thing anymore.
Right.
And they're usually associated with psychos. Guns can be a lot of fun. If you're not a complete asshat or crazy sick person and you just like to go out and shoot targets and things like that, guns can be a lot of fun if they're used properly and safely.
Oh, yeah.
A Gatling gun, there is no fucking way in hell anyone could fire a Gatling gun and not have fun. Those things are so loud and so destructive.
Yeah.
You just watch what they do and you just, oh my God.
Oh, especially those old crank ones like that. Like you really had to put some like effort into turning the wheel to get those to spin like that, to even work like that.
Oh, dude, those army guys are the fucking, the cavalry guys must have had fucking biceps like nobody's business.
Yeah, no kidding.
Their wanking arm was good. They came fast. They came hard.
Came up from the front, but they also come from behind.
They were sneaky. Oh, but yeah, that's his reaction there, his face. We've got I took a picture we'll have to post later. It was just like the most beaming, smiling happiness I've ever seen. And that was just a great way to close out the quadrilogy for me.
Yeah, that was a pretty genuine emotion, it seemed like, too. It wasn't just like, make sure you seem excited in this. Make sure you really get into this moment. And it's like, maybe he was just actually having a little too much fun and it just exceeded what they were asking for. Like, how can you not grin and smile at something like that? And one other fun little trivia note is like through all the movies, I mean, Bert never aimed his gun at another person, period. It was always at the graboids or who, whatever monster was coming for him. Never aimed his gun at anybody. So if you're worried about like these days, if you are sensitive to things like that with gun use in movies, like when you watch these, they are following safety. In the first one, they even check the gun before they trade hands with another actor. So you can watch these and feel a lot more comfortable about the use of these guns. They probably had experienced weapon masters on set and all that. But just to round out that combo, like Bert is just excellent, and he's a good example to look at as far as like any of that goes.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you watch these films, they do a really good job of making Bert just like the hunting instructor that you had when you were 12 years old that tells you safety is not something that works all the time. It is a mechanical device that can fail. They drill that shit into you. They drill into you important safety things like that. That's what you get from Bert. So watching the Tremors movies really does, if you take away from it how he treats a firearm, you are automatically qualified to produce the movie Rust when they get that production going back up and be a better producer than Alec Baldwin was at it.
Do we want to get into some social media, Kevin?
I think so, because we had a lot of people writing in for Tremors.
And our first feedback is from Weggy Yank on Facebook, where she said where she first found Tremors was on VHS from the video store. She was so shocked that she really enjoyed the movie. The other movies were entertaining, but not nearly as good as the original. That's how it always is. So thank you, Weggy. We love that comment. Yeah, some people probably love the first one, and the other ones are fine. And that's cool too.
Well, I think it is a natural progression for most people to feel like you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. And again, like we talked about, if you sit and watch all four of them as an adult, you find out that the lightning isn't. I think people find that the lightning caught the first time was Kevin Bacon. And yeah, Kevin Bacon is lightning. He's fucking cool as shit. But there was a lot more to it that went on from there. Like I'm not disagreeing, but I don't feel like they lost quality in the long run as they progress.
Yeah, it might feel like it does, but they really don't. The only thing they lost was probably the budget. So they had to make some acquisitions. So they might feel a little bit cheaper, but they're not cheaper. They're just as high quality as the other ones are.
Yeah. All right. And then next, we've got Dakota Horn, who said on Facebook that the series got me into horror. The first time watching it was when I was about 6. The original was on, I think, TNT. My mom and dad recorded it, and when it came out, and I loved it. They had me convinced that graboids were real and localized only to Nevada. Even my grandpa got in on the fun, telling me he would see them and stuff. After the second and third, I was hoping to see the series would continue and was not disappointed with the fourth movie and the sci-fi TV show. Even the newer movies I liked. I'm one of the several hundred thousands of fans that are hoping that they continue it somehow. And what I think Dakota's really talking about is Stampede's rights to the Tremors series, not just the Tremors franchise in general, but the quality of what Stampede did, because I think everyone's general consensus is Universal, please give it back to Stampede. Stop making movies until you do.
Right. Or at least be involved with the people. I mean, if you don't want to, I mean, yeah, you don't want to just be like a creative consultant where they only ask you one question or they never ask you anything and you just get your name slapped on there. I'd actually want to be involved myself. But, you know, I've seen the fifth one, I've seen the sixth one, and they have their moments. Bert's great in these, but that's about it. The stories are not that great. I mean, the designs are neat, but you definitely feel the difference between part 4 or 1 through 4 and 5 through 7. It feels like it's a completely different sort of product that's being pushed at you. And yeah, I can see how they can be enjoyable. I have 5 and 6 in my collection. I refuse to own part 7 though.
Is it that bad?
Shrieker Island, and we know some people that absolutely hate that. I just don't like it. I don't hate on much. The only things I really hate are like Blair Witch Project.
But why?
Because it's a horrible movie.
Yeah, at best,
Anyway.
at best. Oh, all right. Next, actually, we got a really good comment from Emmy Award-winning artist Joshua Pruitt, who's our friend from both Mystery Science Theater and Gravity Falls, who said the first film is a literal perfect, capitalized, perfect movie, an all-timer, and it ages like fine wine, getting better every year. It's sweet and smart and funny, and you love the characters, and it's gross and has brilliant monsters. It's not a great monster movie. It's just a great movie. Period. Flat out. End of subject. Josh, goddamn right, dude.
Right on.
See, and that's why he won an Emmy. He says things perfectly. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
He's right. The first movie is pretty perfect. Like I said, it stands the test of time. If it's a movie that you could sit and watch and not feel like you're watching an old classic, quote unquote classic, then the movie's perfect. It stands that test of time. It transcends shit. My 3-year-old just watched all 4 of the movies and half of the TV series with me. She loved it. She's not freaked out. She's just a sick shit like I am, but she had a great time watching it. It is a good movie. She was entertained.
Excellent. I mean, I'm having a blast rewatching all this. I haven't seen this show in like years. So we'll get into that once I finish it and you finish it. And we have our fun little surprises coming up for that. And on the next comment, we got Stephen David from Facebook, where he said, Tremors is the best sci-fi movie that I'd seen as a kid. Damn right.
You know, it probably was. Sci-fi movies throughout the 80s were
those were hard. Those were hard to swallow at times.
Yeah, anything that wasn't Star Wars or Star Trek at the time was kind of hard to watch. Some of them they were really hit and miss. Most of them are on Mystery Science Theater 3000 these
Laser
days.
Blaster, things like that.
2.5 stars. Sorry, I'm sorry, Mr. Malton, I love you. Let's see here. Next, we've got Garrett Ames from Facebook, who said, I never thought part 3 would end up being my favorite.
There you go.
Again, Garrett, dude, I get it, man. it's got that family feel to it. You return and it continues that story from the first movie. And it was a happy homecoming. So
yeah, it's a good rewatchability one. The more you watch it, the more you appreciate it, and the more you like it. And you could look at it, we didn't bring this up earlier, but you could look at the first one. That was Val's story. He was the singular hero at the end of the day. The second one is Earl. And then this one, you get Bert. Like, it goes down the line of like, all of these guys are stepping up when it comes their turn. I mean, it's not really their turn, but it's the situations they're put in, but they all tend to stand up and be the hero that they need to be at the end of the day. And they all end up walking away better for it. And the movie ends up being a really good formula of, you got these kind of heroes that just, they come up to the level that they need to defeat the villains or the badness in this. So it's a great formula, and I love that Bert finally got his chance to carry the third one on his own, and also the fourth one too.
Yeah, he was strong as hell. That comedic side character coming up to be the forefront action hero instead was just really impressive.
And we got one from Michael Stanhope, another one from Facebook. I actually liked 4 as well, but I do like Western movies as well. Billy Drago did a great job playing Black Hand Kelly. Rest in peace, Billy. Yes, I completely agree. And it also just reminded me that he was also great in The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., a Bruce Campbell TV show.
Bly, that's right. Son of a
just
bitch.
Remember that just now.
Wow. Fuck. I'm ashamed of myself.
Another great Western where he was a villain in.
Yes, Bly was the shit.
Another show we should probably talk about at some point.
Yeah, at least the first season. At least. Here's another old friend of ours, Steve Slater from Facebook, says Tremors was the absolute, the most magnificent, the incredible, the unbelievably best worst movie series. I loved the first one. Then the second one came out and it was not bad. Then from there, it keeps going downhill, and I never even got to watch the last 2. But I feel I need to just see how bad they got. Well, Steve, if you're talking about 6 and 7, I think Jeff just said that's how bad they got. They got to the point where not even a Misty wants to watch it.
Yep.
So I would stick with the first 4 and the quadrilogy, because again, there's no downscale of quality there as far as story goes. It's just that 1990s CG that kind of gets you down a little bit. But then of course they bring back the practical effects in a big way when you see when it's necessary. It's practical effects.
Oh, we got one from Brad Babson. Not sure where he posted this one at. Probably Facebook, where he says, "My favorite movie of all time, a cult classic. Kevin Bacon should have," I think he's meaning to say should never have been ashamed of it. And like I said earlier, I don't think he was really ashamed of this. He actually wanted to come back to this. It's one of the only movies he's ever rewatched back himself. And he tried to get a new show going. He did try and work with the original Stampede Entertainment. Universal took a pass on that. They still went ahead with the pilot that they shot. Ultimately, they passed on it, but from what people have said, it sounded like it was probably okay to pass on that one. And for anybody who's seen the footage, the new design of the graboid was not really all that hot. And there's somebody out there has a link to this. There's a little bit of like a trailer for it. It looks like if this was Val coming back now and Stampede was back and Fred Ward was back, like everybody came back for one more like big hoorah. This is the kind of Val you would want in this. And he's not ashamed of this movie. He's more ashamed of some other movies he's done that he never wants to revisit or even talk about. But he's a very accomplished actor. He's done so much in his life. The fact that he would even want to do a new TV show, not a movie, what does that say about Tremors? He's not ashamed of this. He would like to be part of it, but he wants to be part of something good.
And that's respectable, especially when you are someone of his standing in Hollywood. Kevin and Kira as a couple are very
adorable.
I don't want to say powerful. Well, there's that too. But they have a lot of clout. You know, they're not small potatoes in Hollywood. Neither one of them have to work. They do when they like a project that comes along. So when this came along and he was like, yeah, you know, I want to get back to that, that probably said something. Now I have heard that he felt ashamed of this. That at some point he'd said that Kira was pregnant, that he was making a movie about underground worms that ate people and just didn't know what he was doing with his life. Well, people get stressed out when their family is about to expand, especially for the first time. So, and again, at that point in 1989, he was not quote unquote big Kevin Bacon like he is now. I mean, yes, he was. Fucking Footloose was huge, but you know, it's I've also heard that he said he never had more fun on his set than he did with Tremors. So those are two very different conflicting statements. So if he said the one, I figure it's because he was stressed out. The second one, I tend to believe because he made that pilot. You know, sometimes TV pays more than screen does or film does these days. So it's not like it was back a long time ago where you went to TV and that's where you were dead. You got typecast.
Or the retirement tour as your acting career.
Your last fuckable day. So no, I wish he would come back. I wish Stampede had a chance to do a fifth movie that did bring Val, Earl, and Burt back together. That would be a lot of fun. But I don't know if that's going to end up ever happening because Universal is just shit. They know that they can make a Tremors 8, 9, and 10 for dirt cheap, and people will watch it because it's got the Tremors name on there, and they'll fucking sell it to Netflix to stream for whatever amount of money immediately. And that's where they'll make their money off of it. They don't want to risk spending more on a better movie to gamble whether or not it's going to be a hit, because Tremors was not a hit. Tremors was a cult classic.
Bombed in the theaters.
Tremors didn't make its money. Yeah, it didn't make its money until VHS, and VHS wasn't home video until after the early 90s. Like VHSs were still really expensive until like 92, 93 because they were only produced for your rental stores.
If you had to buy them, they were like close to like $80 to $100.
Yes, Ghostbusters was ridiculously expensive.
I know, because my grandfather would get me some Full Moon movies, like the Puppet Master movies. Those would cost like between 80 to 120. And once I found that out, I'm like, Grandpa, why the hell are you buying these for me? Yeah, I asked for them.
Because they're fucking cool.
I mean, yeah, I loved them, but
I don't know. These monster movies here, they need to make a comeback. They need more appreciation. And I think our society needs to appreciate monster movies a little bit more. Look at your horror films that are out now that are doing really popular. The Insidious franchise, the Conjuring franchise. Those movies are all PG-13, but they're scary as shit to a point. I mean, no, you're not going to fucking piss yourself, but they're good movies. They're good, creepy movies. So there's no reason why Tremors today, being PG-13, could not be successful. The audience just needs to be in a mood to go see a good monster movie and go have fun.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the only other thing I could say back on the rights thing is this is probably like the Fantastic Four situation where you have to make a movie every few years, like 5 or 10 years. But if you don't do that, then the rights can go back to the production studio. If it takes a long time and they don't get another project started, like they actually have to start shooting, then this probably goes back to Stampede. At that point, then they could take this to wherever they would want to go. And I'm open to that. I think it's a better option than just it forever being stagnant with Jamie Kennedy leading the next 20 features. We don't need that.
Let's just say it for what it is. For fuck's sake, no.
Yeah, like that was just not necessary. I didn't appreciate the the change in story like that and inclusion of him. I don't hate him as a person. He does not fit. He didn't work for me. And that's all I'm going to say about those last movies with him.
I have heard he is not a nice person, and I've heard that Michael Gross is
Michael,
a nice
yeah.
person. So I'm not quite sure how that
They
works.
probably had their own separate trailers and only interacted for the scenes that they needed to.
That works. Well, one of the things that I do want to ask Steve next episode is a lot of Tremors fans have been asking, and I don't really see an answer to their question. What can we do to get Stampede the rights back from
Right.
Universal? And again, that's going to be a question for Steve, because we can only do things like speculate, because we know rights and how rights work within certain things from streaming services, how Shout works with rights for using them for MST and MST Live and things like that. Rights issues are really skittish. There's a bunch of fine print that you can't imagine. It's ridiculous. And it's probably harder than hell. But for a good authoritative answer, I really want to ask him about that. Like, what can they do to help you guys make your next big project?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Because I'd like to see what I'd call a Tremors 5. Yeah, see, I'm one of those people that calls Exorcist 4 Exorcist 3, because I don't really look at Exorcist 2 as being
it's kind of like how I look at the Hellraiser series. After part 3, it's like, oh, well, you kicked Clive Barker off the set of part 4 and you told him, hey, we know how to make a Hellraiser movie better than you. And you still haven't proven that yet. So thank you, Dimension.
No. Part 4 was cool. Hellraiser in space.
He was still working on that one, so he was still involved. I happily own that one, but from like the studio interference from that one, and then they kicked him off, and then from part 5 all the way to the end, it's like, yeah, I've heard Deader is okay,
It's
but
horrible.
like, I don't care. You told Clive Barker you could do his story better than him, the goddamn guy who wrote the goddamn story and did direct the first 2 movies, regardless of what you think. I think 1 and 2 are great. 3, yeah, that's a little wonky, but Jesus Christ, you don't tell the author of the story, oh, we know how to do your story better than you. No, you don't.
No, especially him. I've met Clive a handful of times, and not only is he a giant fucking sweetheart, but he's one of the world's smartest goddamn artists ever. Like, he sees the world in such a different way. All of his books are just as poetic as they are filthy and disgusting and horrific. They're beautiful horror. And the only person that can make a Clive Barker movie be better than a Clive Barker book has been Clive Barker. And we've seen that every time he's directed a film. Every time he hasn't directed a film, that movie is bombed horribly. Yeah. So they suck. I own Hellraiser 5, and that was when Kirsty was supposed to be coming back, and it was just horrible.
Yep.
It was absolutely
I couldn't hack it.
And from there I was like, no, I'm out.
Well, at least with Tremors, maybe there's some good news on the horizon. We'll have to wait and see how things go, but we're not done with this franchise yet. We're heading into our wheel well. We're heading into the television show, which is ultimately the end of our survival guide here. So thank you for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next time. We have a couple great guests lined up. Can't wait to have them on. Can't wait to talk about Tremors, the TV show. Kevin, do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners?
Stay on high ground. Try not to talk too much, and push somebody else onto the dirt if they're not making too much noise around you. Yep. Little turd. No,
Yep,
I just want to say thank you,
Melvin.
everybody, for listening. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for everybody for writing in. It means a lot to us, and we can't wait for the next episode to show you what we've got next.
Absolutely. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at Suns and Shadows. Also check us out on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.